Let me think about how I want to say this.
I got 2 words.
Just for everybody that's going to see this, that's listening. There's nothing, zero, nothing a fan could tell me about basketball. Zero, nothing. So let's start there. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Second,
My bad.
How y'all doing? At 4 a.m., I wanted to keep the good vibes going. First of all, I want to say this is going to be a very polite video. I'm not going to be spitting fire or getting angry. And quite frankly, big shout out to CJ Miles. I'm a big fan of your show, to be honest. I've watched plenty of episodes. I love the episode that you did with Scotty's trainer. Nothing but respect. And thank you for responding to me on Twitter. Obviously, thanks for keeping it respectful. I'll obviously keep it respectful as well. But I definitely want to address this. There's a big elephant in the room in the NBA community and in the fandom. Every time a Charles Barkley or a Kendrick Perkins or a Fred VanVleet or a Draymond Green says that people who haven't played in the NBA don't have the insight of people who have played in the NBA, when Draymond Green talks about new media as a means of kind of going at traditional media. Now, you know me. I'm not a huge fan of the NBA media in general. There's a lot of people that I'm not really a huge fan of, and obviously, if you ask me, does Jeff Doughton know more about basketball than Michael Grange or something like that, I would pick Jeff pretty easily, right? But that doesn't mean that we can paint everyone with a broad brush, right? That's what the entire shut up and dribble thing was about. It was painting athletes with an entirely broad brush, and I don't think that that's fair. And I also don't think that painting all fans with a broad brush is fair. Especially, and this is not shade to Pascal Siakam, but earlier in the year, I swear I knew every statistic possible about the Sacramento Kings offense. I knew all the plays they were running. I knew how their offense was humming so well. And he was asked about the Sacramento Kings, who he was about to play, and he was surprised that they were good this year. And it was in that moment that I realized that, look, all NBA athletes are not equal. There are students of the game like a Chris Paul, where you genuinely feel like if you went toe to toe with Chris Paul and you're not in the NBA, you probably would get smoked, right? But not all NBA players are equal, and not all NBA fans are equal. So I wanted to talk about this concept of knowledge specifically because every time somebody says all people are, it triggers a thought in my head of this shuts something down, and I don't want it to shut anything down, right? Um, Good morning, Sahib. Yeah, and you know what? Shout outs to our international community. I know a lot of you check in from China, from the West Coast, from Europe, from Sweden, from Norway, from Africa. I check the demographics, and every single day I'm blown away by how many people outside of Canada watch Pinsire basketball, and I love it, and I'm here for it. So first, I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Queensway Automotive Group. I hope can you let me know? Can you guys still see this on screen? This video that I've frozen, because that's going to be pretty crucial to what I'm doing next. Um, Big shout out to Queensway Automotive Group for supporting this channel and for effectively allowing me to do what we do. Um, Hang on, sorry, I gotta scrub through this. Sorry, guys. Okay. Someone said, does Pinsire basketball sleep? Yes, but at really weird times. So can you still see introducing the subject on the side? Yes? Okay, good. Awesome. So first, big shout out to Queensway Automotive Group for supporting this channel. Awesome GTA company. If you're in the GTA and you're looking for a car to sell, car to buy, or just information about cars, definitely check the affiliate link in the description below, which will be, I realize I probably haven't written it. I will write it below, or check our last videos. The video is much louder than your mix. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, well, thankfully there's no more audio from the video coming through and I don't have to talk over it, so that's good. So first, let's introduce the subject. What happened? Fred VanVleet went on CJ Miles' podcast with Amit Man, and he made quite a stir saying that, you know, there's nothing that a fan can tell him about basketball. And obviously, I'm sitting there like, oh, such a Fred VanVleet comment, right? And look, he's not the first athlete to feel this way. In fact, if you talk to athletes privately, a lot of them feel this way, if not most of them feel this way. And this is across sports. This is across basketball, tennis, football, whatever. And I think this is a really unevolved way of thinking about knowledge. And I think this is really untrue as well. There are plenty of NBA players, great NBA players, that have made disastrous executives. There's such a branch of basketball. It goes so far beyond, you know, how you run split cut action, or, you know, how you peel off a screen, or how you specifically shoot a basketball. Some of the greatest trainers in the world are not ex-NBA players. Some of the worst trainers are ex-NBA players. Some of the best executives have never played basketball or have never played competitive basketball after grade school. Daryl Morey comes to mind as an example of a really great executive. Mike D'Antoni is obviously a former player, but most of his experience is international. So, look, there's an exclusivity of what have you done to earn my respect? And there's always this idea, and I think it's a false idea, that ex-NBA players have a major leg up over everybody else. There's like the field, and then there's NBA players. I'll give you an example. Danny Ainge, the next NBA player, Jerry West, the next NBA player. These are two of the best executives in the league. Masai Ujiri is a former basketball player. He never played in the NBA, though. He's also one of the best executives in the league. However, Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time. He has consistently been one of the worst executives ever. Okay? Across sports, across any sports. I mean, find me someone who has screwed up more top 3 picks than Michael Jordan. Adam Morrison, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Kwame Brown. That's 1, 2, 3. Okay? I cannot think of another executive ever who has screwed up more top 3 picks than Michael Jordan. One of my favorite players, but you got to keep it real. I think this element of hubris comes in, well, I was great at playing basketball, so I must be great at talking about basketball, and I must be great at thinking about basketball, and I must be great at training basketball. Now, you know, let's go to the first point, which is really strands of knowledge, right? I think we could all agree that the best surgeon in the world would not be the best person to teach you about surgery, right? Because we can understand that when we shift the topic from actually performing the surgery to teaching people how to perform the surgery, we are suddenly leaning on a completely different skill set. Yes, it helps to have knowledge. This is why so many professors in the universities and top end universities have real world experience in the fields in which they are teaching. They do like research in those fields. There's but there are certain combinations. Like for instance, people will often I've heard this comment in the Raptors Twitter sphere and Reddit spaces, right? Yes, this is a great example. Vlade Divac, one of my childhood heroes and a fellow countryman. And, he thought, this is crazy. He knew Luka's dad. He knew Luka's dad. He was more familiar with international basketball. Do you know that the two people who passed on Luka Doncic in the draft, that the two organizations had people in leadership positions who knew Luka better than everybody else in the league? Vlade Divac knew Luka's dad, knew Luka, saw Luka as a kid. He watched this kid grow up, okay? He did not pick him. He picked Marvin Bagley. He is a former All-Star and quite frankly, like one of the greatest international players of all time. The head coach of the Phoenix Suns at the time was, in fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, someone who had coached Luka. He's an insider. He is a very smart person, but he made that mistake. So what is it? When I think about how much basketball has grown outside of the specific sport itself, like specifically playing the sport. So we now have so many strands of knowledge, which include analytics, tracking data, software. We're talking basketball in the metaverse. So there's growth in business. There's growth in training. There's growth in like science, like the physical science of peak, like what they're doing at P3, right? This requires different strands of knowledge. When I think about someone like Louis Zatzman, right, for Raptors Republic and I believe for 538, right? I mean, when I read his articles, I'm like, yo, there are NBA players that I for sure know would be dizzy reading some of these articles and some of the numbers and references, stuff that he's doing. Well, how do we shut that down? Well, if you're Charles Barkley, you broad brush all those people as nerds who couldn't get girlfriends in high school and are now taking their revenge out on, the basketball world with their stupid numbers, right? And you have people like Kendrick Perkins and Charles Barkley who are on television and they are just broad brushing every one of these people. Ben Taylor of Thinking Basketball definitely knows more about basketball than Kendrick Perkins. I'll tell you that right now. And yeah, Ben's 6'3", but he's never played in the NBA. He's never sniffed the NBA, right? But he's learned about the NBA. I'm gonna bring this back to a real life. Like, I mean, look, and just for anyone who doesn't know me, who's not familiar with me or isn't around these lives a lot. Yeah, I've talked to NBA players. I've had friends who were in the NBA who fizzled out. I have a great deal of empathy for understanding how difficult it is to make it to the NBA. And I know friends of mine who either are 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", but they play Division One basketball. They were, highly recruited, 4-star, 3-star type of recruits. And, I've played against players who I thought were the shit, in Canada basketball, and then they don't end up getting a Division One scholarship and they were averaging 37 points per game. I know there's levels to this and I understand that. But I got to tell you, like, just because you made it to the NBA, it doesn't mean that you know basketball. I'm just being straight up with you. There are plenty of basketball players, plenty of NBA basketball players, and if I put them next to a Ben Taylor or a Louis Satzman or someone who just really deeply studies the game, even someone like Samson, honestly, not to throw myself in this hat, but even someone like myself, if you were to put us on a Jeopardy, show and just test all the strands of basketball from basketball history to basketball like the physics of basketball, the physical science of basketball, the future of basketball, the cap, all of these things are related to basketball. NBA draft, if like for instance, if Kendrick Perkins and I did a mock draft for 2023, who would be more correct? Someone who's studied the draft every single year, who studies all these prospects, who watches these prospects, or him because, he was a center in the NBA. This element um, of like knowledge is so important. And I think that we need to understand this, because if we don't understand this, then we have people like Draymond Green who just get away with saying, well, I'm the new media and everything I say is gospel. And it shuts down any debate, because if you're, I don't know, Skip Bayless, and I don't like Skip Bayless, but I'm just saying, if you're Skip Bayless and you're having a conversation with Draymond Green, I don't think that that conversation should necessarily shut down at I play in the NBA, you don't, so it's over, right? Like, it just doesn't help that a lot of the people that sometimes say the most ridiculous things on air are people who've never played in the league, like Skip Bayless, Nick Wright, guys like this. But that doesn't mean that if you really talk to NBA players deep about the game, that you wouldn't be absolutely shocked at how little they know about certain elements of the game that you do. So that's really the first part of this. Um, Someone said Shaq. Yeah, I mean Shaq's a great example. You know, um, like I'm not talking about the elites. And when I say the elites, I mean like Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. Chris Paul, right? Fred VanVleet could also be, considered a very elite basketball mind. Like he's really up there, and I can tell from how he speaks about the game that he deeply studies it and really understands it. So I understand his comment, and this is not me saying that the average fan and Fred VanVleet could have a debate about basketball and that it wouldn't be a complete smoke. Like it would. But I'm just telling you that you can't shoot 38. You can't be the worst in terms of the entire league in field goal percentage and then go on and say that there's nothing that, anyone outside of the NBA can tell you about basketball. Trust me, there are people outside of NBA trainers and NBA athletes and NBA coaches who could definitely tell you a few things about basketball. Also, like one more thing, there's a personal element to basketball, which is, all the soft skills and whatever. Like when NBA athletes go to media training, the people that are teaching them on media day, like the media training that they go through when they're rookies, those people are sometimes not NBA athletes that are telling them about how to do it, because they're people who understand how to speak. Like that's a part of it, right? Branding, taxes, investments. I mean, all of this is, it's tied to basketball in a weird way, right? Um, for instance, like to give you an example, like I've had an NBA athlete one time. This was in 2012 or 13, 2012, 2011, and we were talking, and he said, "Would you mind looking at all my misses, like throughout? I think it was like a 2 month stretch. Would you mind looking at all my misses and telling me like what variable I can fix to this?" And we did all the tracking data. We literally did it by hand because I wasn't like really computer savvy back then, and I didn't think the software existed to do this. And so we were tracking every single miss, and we were finding variables in it. An example that comes to mind is Samson's article for Raptors Republic, where he went deep into not Fred VanVleet, Scotty Barnes passes, and he tracked every single pass, and he was able to break it down into these very unique ways. And I'm positive that Scotty Barnes is a really smart person, but I'm also positive that if he read that article, there's something new that he would learn about himself that he didn't know already. And I think that that's where this relationship has to be. Like there has to be an open line of communication to at least talk about it. Um, Moving on to the next point of this. So the concept of learning. So I think that I've gone on this before. I think people need to continue to evolve their minds and continue to learn. Far too many NBA athletes who cover this game, and there are a few exceptions, of course, they stop learning. They have like, it's like their minds are stuck in a time warp, and it's like everything they know about basketball is frozen in like 1997 or 1998, and they rebel and retort and get angry at everything that came after it. Everything's too soft, blah 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 blah. Rules were different in my time, blah blah blah. Players complain too much now. um the offense was, people were way less selfish in my day. Fouls were harder. It was harder to play in my day. It's stuff like that. And when you actually go into the sports science of it, right? You start talking to people who do the tracking data, who do the numbers, who can go back and study all the film that maybe most people are very lazy to go back and study every single game from 1992 to 1993 and watch every single game and check like how much hand checking there really was, how much of a difference there was when the NBA eliminated hand checking. What is hand checking? I'm positive. Let me put it this way. I am positive that I could ask every single NBA player. There's 450 NBA players. I'm positive I could ask every single NBA player what is hand checking, and at least 10 of them would not know the exact correct answer to that. I bet my life. And honestly, if I had to guess, I would put the over on like 100. Okay? The exact definition of hand checking. Like if I showed them two examples, like, is this hand checking or is this hand checking? And I said, like, what's hand checking? They would be wrong. And that's the point. That for those of us who do study this game very deeply, it's a little bit insulting, really, to say that because we are willing to go into that data. Now, I am not telling you that I can tell Fred VanVleet how to shoot a basketball. And the day that I do that, please understand that I have officially lost my mind. Okay? I cannot tell you, the grind of an NBA athlete. I can't tell you about recovery because I'm not a trainer. Number one, I'm not a trainer. I'm not a doctor. This is not my level of expertise. This is not my area of expertise. This is not what I've dug into. This is not, but to broad brush everything and say, well, if you didn't play in the NBA, you can't tell me anything about basketball it's so, it's ignorant, actually. It's a really big sign of ignorance. Um, Now, the elephant in the room. Intelligence is a really, really, really big part of life. And if you're smart, you know that. And quite frankly, if you're not very smart, you definitely also should know that. When you have an incredibly gifted mind, and some NBA players have a gifted mind, some don't. Some are running on fumes. I guarantee if we did an IQ test of the NBA athletes, all NBA athletes, it would be a very it would probably reflect the population pretty well. Like it would be a pretty average sample of the population. Like I wouldn't say it would be lower than the average population. I wouldn't say it would be higher, but it would be pretty average, right? But that also means that how you learn, what you can learn, the strands of data that you can put together. Like if I watch game film and you watch game film and you're like 2 times smarter than I am, you're gonna see things in that game film that I'm just not able to see. You're gonna connect things that I'm not able to connect with my mind. And this is why, there are people in the analytics world who are paid millions of dollars every single year for their research and for their data. And it is the teams like the Toronto Raptors, like Daryl Morey's, Houston Rockets, the teams that have leaned into analytics that have really changed the game of basketball. When you look at the evolution of basketball, you look at the Sacramento Kings, what they're doing right now, you look at the Warriors offense. Consider, like, I mean, Steve Kerr was an NBA player. I get that. But a lot of people involved in the Warriors ascension are not ex-NBA players, right? You also, I'm not sure I understand this um, through leaders that step up. I'm not sure I understand that comment, jigsaw puzzle. My point is that if you're really smart, you're going to pick up knowledge, you're going to pick up information really differently. And so I find, and I have found in my dealings with people who study this league and who are being paid to provide, information to trainers and paid, information to athletes about, even things like recovery, right? Like someone like Tim Grover, like the work that he did with Michael Jordan as his trainer, right? Like Tim Grover is not an ex-NBA player, but he understands basketball like in a way that most people cannot even fathom, right? Because see, Tim's smart, like he's really smart, right? Um, it's I try not to be rude when I say this, but there's levels to this. And when I'm saying there's levels to this, it means that there's a sort of cap on how far you can go. And I don't want to say it's a hard cap. It's a soft cap for sure. There's flexibility on both sides. But you're not going to tell me that someone with a physics degree right, from MIT is going to look at a basketball game and not see things that you cannot possibly see as someone who doesn't have that degree and who does not have that mind. It's just not, it's not realistic. It's not, that idea is not grounded in reality. And so I guess I'm sticking up for nerds everywhere and non-NBA players everywhere who discuss this game on a daily basis, right? I'm not appealing to the opposite side, right? There was a part of me that was, going back and forth with CJ Miles, and I was like, like, do I just say, okay, well, I have a degree in stats and you don't, so shut up? you know, no, but that's appealing to the exact opposite side of what he's saying. He's saying I'm in the NBA, so shut up. He's not really saying that. I think Fred VanVleet's more saying that, but he's sort of advancing that idea of like, if you don't have credibility in this league, like if you haven't worked in the NBA, then you can't really, why is your list any more important than anybody else's? And it's like, well, if I've watched the NBA and I've studied the NBA and I study the numbers and you don't, then yeah, my list is going to be more credible than yours. And I have to say, like, that would be true for anybody, not just me. Um, Moving on to the next subject. Um, yeah. So this is an invitation. Look, CJ is, I want to say like a new content creator in the Raptor space, and I've liked some of his stuff. Obviously, as I said, he did interview Brian Macon, Scotty's trainer, and I really enjoyed that conversation. I loved how they were able to ping pong. Like I remember checking out Scotty's trainer's interview with Aaron Rose, and it was cool, right? But the way he was able to talk to CJ because Brian is, obviously he's a former Division 1 player. CJ is a former NBA player. There's certain things that they're able to go to in a conversation that maybe he wasn't able to go to with me. And I found that to be really interesting to watch. And so, I've been listening to him and I think that he's really good. So, CJ Miles, if this ever gets to you, honestly, if you ever want to have a polite discussion about just the nature of how two worlds can exist, or if you ever feel like listening to us talk about the 62 players that we think are better than Fred VanVleet and give us some insight into why someone that we have over him isn't better than him, or why you feel like, he's being underrated or whatever, I'll be happy to have you on. Just shoot me an email. I mean, these videos, I don't know, it's kind of, you could probably view this as very arrogant. Like, who the hell am I to be inviting CJ Miles onto Pinsire Basketball? But the way I see it, we get a ton of views. It's probably a good opportunity to plug something or whatever. So, by all means, I think it'd be a very interesting discussion, probably eye-opening for me. Probably I would learn a lot as well. So if you ever feel like doing that, we can take it beyond Twitter and we could just have a conversation about it. And I think our community would get a lot from it too. And, maybe it would, I don't know, it would pull more people towards your podcast as well. So that is my invitation to CJ Miles. Anyway, like, what has been the point of this? The point of this really is I don't like things that shut down critical thought. When someone says that, there's nothing that a fan can tell me about basketball, my, silly brain goes right to, thousands of examples that, a fan could definitely tell Fred VanVleet something about basketball. That isn't to say that that a fan can tell Fred VanVleet how to be a better basketball player. Like an average fan could do that. And look, I am completely aware that when he says that, that fan didn't even know that play, that he's right. There's a lot of silly things that fans say, and I'm not throwing shade at fans too. I'm not like doubling down on the exact same thing that they did, but yes, of course, there's going to be a researched opinion and there's going to be, an uneducated opinion, and there's a right to both. If you think, Fred VanVleet, like there's a single shot that Fred VanVleet takes and he bricks it or he airballs it and you're like, he's a chucker. And, an NBA athlete is going to cling to the fact that he was forced to take that shot. Obviously, right? Like, you would be sort of wrong and they would have a point to say, like, see, you don't know the game of basketball. But again, to those of us who do break down the film, who study it, who've been doing this for a really long time, and there are a lot of people like this, right? And we could argue that analytics and nerds like me are, having more and more of a voice in the basketball community in terms of what's a great shot, in terms of what's a good teammate, in terms of what's efficient offense, right? I think that that's a good thing. I think friction, builds stronger ideas. And, you know, I think we all evolve when we have discussions. So Pensar basketball is about having discussions. And at 4:30 in the morning, I think we're at 4:45 in the morning, I figured this was a discussion worth having. Thank you to the 45 people who decided to stay with us at this early morning, and to those of you who catch this, as you wake up on Toronto time. Thanks for watching, and definitely let me know in the comments what you think about the relationship between fans and NBA players. Do you think it goes too far? Do you think fans are always wrong or mostly wrong? And how do you think you can make it better? And maybe also let me know if you agree with Fred VanVleet that there's nothing that an NBA fan can tell him. Because I don't, obviously. That's why I made this video. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, during yesterday's live, yesterday's live on Victor Wembanyama, I shouted out this channel, Goateology. Just a quick little reminder here of what that was. Yeah, and the coolest thing about you guys is you guys almost got him to 200 subs now, which is really cool, but it's not enough. We need to get him up to 1,000 subs by the play-in, which is like in 2 games, guys. So y'all got work to do. I got sleep to get to. And by the way, this was a first. If you witnessed this, I'm having tea instead of coffee for the first time on a live ever. So maybe that explains the lack of hostility right now. Coffee makes you angry, and tea hopefully calms you down. Anyway, Anosh Kiani says, "What Batman in the back doing?" Good catch. Once every 3 lives, people reference like, why is there a Jurassic Park dinosaur and a oh my God, what the hell? Yo, speak of the devil. What are you doing up, man? Um, this is a very surprising thing and crazy generous. Oh, yo, I'm trying. This is so funny. First of all, thank you so much. I'm trying to get you subscribers so you can get paid, and you're giving me $70 super chat. Go, thanks a lot, man. This is a huge thing. Thank you very much, man. It goes a long way, and obviously, thank you so much. I genuinely support your content. Reach out to me if you I have some suggestions. Obviously, they're not like, oh, like they're just little tidbits on YouTube shit. Obviously, your content is this is gonna sound stupid. Your content's goated. Like, it's amazing. Um, so yeah, feel free to, bro. Do you have a link? Call in. Call in right now. I think people would appreciate, like, if you want to call in, you can definitely call in sometime. I think it would be like a really cool introduction to your channel if you ever feel like doing that. Um, yeah. So anyway, let's get them up to 1,000 subscribers, guys. And if you needed any more of a reason to do that, well, now you have a reason. I'll put the link in a pinned comment or something, or maybe in the description. But yeah, go definitely feel like if you feel like calling in sometime. Obviously, you have no problem talking basketball, so feel free to call in sometime, and it'll be a nice little intro to your community. And yeah, congrats on all the success on your channel. I think I mentioned it in a comment that Scotty's parents both watched your video. I have no idea how they felt about it. Kind of follow up with it, but yeah, it's cool, right? Anyways, all right, man. Cheers, and y'all have a great night. And Billy saying respect to go. Yeah, for sure, man. Respect. All right. Have a good one, guys. Have a good night or good morning. Have a good morning. Have a good day. Have a good day. You're gonna watch this later on. Have a good day. All right. Peace.